I'm Sevgi Yumlu from StudyinAmerica.com. Today, we're pleased to be with the Director of Admissions at Stanford Graduate Business School, Lisa Giannangenli. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm delighted to be here as well. Again, my name is Lisa Giannangenli. I'm the Director of MBA Admissions for the Stanford MBA program. I'm also an alumna of the program many years ago, and before and after business school, I worked in consulting prior to returning to the business school.
Can you tell us something about your program?
Absolutely. So Stanford Graduate School of Business is a 2-year full-time general management program. So we don't have specific concentrations or majors, but we want to make sure that we're grounding our students in all of the general management disciplines so that it really lasts throughout the life of their career. The business school was founded in 1925 and Stanford University a few years before that, around the turn of the century. We're pretty fortunate in where we're located because the business school is rather small in size with about 390 students or so that start each year, but we're part of something much, much larger, which obviously is Stanford University. And Stanford University is home to some of the top programs in a number of different fields, whether it's law or medicine, education, engineering, and students and faculty members from all of those different disciplines are coming together oftentimes to work on problems. And then also Stanford University is located within the heart of Silicon Valley, which is a very interesting and dynamic place. I think Stanford really helped to create Silicon Valley many years ago with its students and its faculty and its alumni. So I think it's just a place that encourages risk-taking and innovation and creativity, and as a result, you have all sorts of wonderful new ideas and products and companies that come out of that area.
Students we have spoken with who have studied at the Stanford Graduate Business School are now outstanding professionals in their respective industries. They shared with us that they have had excellent experiences, and they all credit their experiences at Stanford MBA as being instrumental to their success. What makes your program so great?
Well, I think part of it is we don't consider ourselves an MBA factory, so to speak. Really, we bring students in, a smaller group of students each year with about 390, and our aim is to provide a personal transformation, as our dean says. So this is everything that happens both inside the classroom and outside the classroom, and at the result of, or at the end of this 2-year educational experience, we really think that we're going to be launching you on a career with impact and a life of meaning. So it's more than just learning finance, just learning strategy, just learning marketing. Absolutely, it's a very academic, rigorous program. You're going to learn all the key general management disciplines, but you're also going to learn to push and to challenge yourself. You're going to learn to think, not just what to think, but how to think, which is a very important skill, whether we do that through our critical analytical thinking courses or our design innovation thinking courses. So kind of approaching problems from a number of different perspectives, whether it's analytically or more creatively. And then also we spend quite a bit of time helping our students develop their own personal leadership style, because leadership obviously is not one size fits all, but you have to find your own voice and your own style that works best for you.
What is a typical day like for a student at Stanford Graduate Business School? Do you rather describe the studies as theoretical or practical?
So I guess the real answer is that there is no typical day, but you've probably heard that before. But I think in a day in the life of the student, they're probably going to have maybe anywhere 3 or 4 classes, so they're going to be spending some time in the classroom environment. They will also obviously be preparing for those classes, maybe working on a case study, meeting with their study groups or teams, or doing some problem sets. So there's a fair amount of preparation that goes into each class. Oftentimes people are coming back for graduate studies because maybe they're thinking of a career switch or a career transition. So they might be thinking of their next professional steps as well, and maybe meeting with some organizations and companies that are on campus to learn more about that new industry or that new field. Stanford also is just a very rich environment for all sorts of guest speakers from around the world, whether they be in business, in literature, Nobel Prize winners, politicians, anyone you could possibly imagine. So I think just taking advantage of all there is to take advantage of at Stanford, plus being very involved in student clubs and organizations, leading a global study trip. That's something that's a little bit different about our program, but every single student must go on a global experience to a country that is new to them, someplace where they've never lived or worked or studied before for any extended period of time.
For the past 5 years, the number of international MBA applicants have risen consistently. Please tell us your thoughts about the international applicant pool and your past experience with them.
We work very hard to ensure that we have a number of international applicants each year and students in the class. My colleagues and I all travel extensively throughout the world, meeting individuals, telling them a little bit more about the Stanford MBA program, and as a result, I think we see some wonderful students who ultimately enroll in our program. In any given year, the total of international students is typically somewhere between 35 to 40%. It seems a little bit harder these days to account for international students because today's world is just such a global economy. So you might have a U.S. national citizen, but perhaps they've studied abroad and worked abroad, or the opposite. You might have someone who perhaps grew up in Turkey, but maybe studied in the U.S. and then now has been working in Europe or other part of the world. So it is a very, very diverse and global student population.
Many international students around the world come from universities which follow a uniquely difficult grading system, where perhaps a 2.5 or 2.8 is considered to be a good GPA. Such students may be concerned about their strong academic background not being noticed correctly. What message or advice can you give to such students?
So we're very well aware, we are very well aware of all the different educational systems used around the world, and so we're well versed in those systems. We do read by country as well, so that we can better understand the educational systems in a particular region. If there's something highly unusual with the university that perhaps needs a little bit of extra explanation, they could just write a couple of sentences in the additional information section of our application. But really, there's nothing that they need to explain. We are very well versed on the differences in educational systems. And if you think about it, in any given year in our incoming students, we might have about 150 or 160 different universities from around the world represented in that student population.
How may the recent global economical crisis have affected the competition in the admissions process? Has it particularly affected the number of internationals in the program?
I don't think it's had any particular bearing on the number of internationals. There has been a lot of press coverage recently on the effects of the global crisis on the volume of applications. We have looked kind of throughout time during recessionary periods and what has that resulted in as far as our applications, and really haven't found them to be tied. The last few years we had a bit of a peak in our MBA applications, but that was perhaps related more to the fact that it's a very large population of students now that are getting ready to apply to graduate programs, so the millennial generation as we call them, and they tend to value higher education a lot more, and so more individuals are going back for degrees. If you look at the last time when we had also very, very high application volumes, it was the late 1990s when the economy was actually very strong relative to today. So it hasn't necessarily been tied to the economy much. The last couple of years we have had a little bit of a spike again in sort of that over the years cyclical pattern, but again that's more tied toward the size of the applicant pool.
What advice do you offer to applicants who are interested in applying to Stanford MBA?
So my best advice is really to be yourself, and I know that sounds maybe overly simplistic or perhaps not that helpful, but it really, really is. So I think oftentimes applicants make the mistake of trying to over-manufacture or over-package their application and really writing what they think we want to hear versus what they truly feel and what they're interested in and what they would ultimately like to do with their careers. So my best advice is really to sort of be yourself throughout the process. And I remember back when I was applying many years ago, the internet was not then what it is today, so it was a lot harder to learn more about different MBA programs. And you'd order a brochure in the mail, you'd look at the pretty pictures in the brochure, it was always sunny that day, everyone was always smiling, there wasn't that much to go on. And I worked for a consulting firm at the time, and they did a very kind thing. They got together all of the analysts in North America in a gigantic hotel ballroom in Chicago, and then invited 6 different top MBA programs to speak to us about their programs and the admissions process. And at the end of this all-day graduate school symposium, one of my consulting colleagues, a fellow analyst, raised his hand and he said, "I have a confession to make." And the whole room turned around thinking, what is this crazy person going to say? And he said, "You know what? I haven't sold a $15 million deal, and I'm not Mother Teresa. And I haven't cured cancer, nor have I recovered from it. And I don't have an Olympic gold medal, and I don't," and he finished with a few other things. And then on top of it all, he said, "I love my parents, and I had a very happy childhood." And he said, "Help. What am I going to write about? How am I going to differentiate myself from every other person in this room that works for the same company, that wants to apply to all the same schools that I want to apply to when I'm normal?" And we all sort of laughed at the time because we'd been thinking the same thing, but he was the only crazy individual willing to voice this fear. And the director for Stanford at the time answered the question first, and I very much took to heart what she said that day, and it absolutely remains true today as well. But she said the majority of people who go to the Stanford GSB have done ordinary things extraordinarily well. So they're ordinary people with ordinary lives, but they've just been very committed to whatever it is they've chosen to do to date, and that same spark and passion comes out when they talk about their future aspirations. So really my best advice is to try to be yourself at every point throughout that process.
Do you have any messages to the Study in America viewers?
Yes, we would love to see your application in the coming year or in the coming years. What we are looking for in our applicants is what we would call intellectual vitality. So yes, it's your grades and your test scores, but more importantly, it is your love of learning and your intellectual curiosity and your attitude about learning. We're also looking for people who have great demonstrated leadership potential. And these could be, these examples could come from things that you did in university, things that you were doing in your professional lives, or things that you've done outside of school or work. And then finally, we're looking for, sort of what personal qualities and contributions that you would be bringing to share with the Stanford community. And this is everything about you, your perspective on life and the influences that you've had throughout your life. And so we would love to see your voice and your perspectives heard more in our Stanford GSB classroom.
Today we welcome Lisa Giannangenli from Stanford Graduate Business School. I'd like to thank you on behalf of Study in America for giving this opportunity.
And thank you as well to Study in America.